All right, welcome to Investing for Sisters. If you are a sister, if you have a sister, if you are my sister, Nicole, then this video is for you. In this video, we're going to learn about how to become an investor, how to get started, all the basics we need to know, dagnabbit. We're going to learn about the types of investments available to us. We're going to learn about core concepts like compounding interest. We're going to learn about the dastardly inflation monster. We're going to learn how to create our own portfolio. We're going to go through an example of what a portfolio might look like if you had a hypothetical $100,000 to invest. And finally, we're going to talk about some actionable steps you can take right now to become and start your investment journey. So without further ado, let's get going. So let's begin by talking about the types of investments that are available to you. Investments generally fall into three categories: low risk, medium risk, high risk. The level of risk is associated with how much you could possibly gain or lose from any given investment. Let's zoom in on low risk investments. When we talk about these type of investments, we're talking about high yield savings accounts. We're talking about corporate bonds. We're talking about ETFs, 401ks, dividend stocks. These low risk investments generally give us modest returns, 3 to 6%. Now, medium risk investments, this is where we can get a bit more aggressive and actually start building wealth. When we talk about medium risk investments, we're talking about index funds. We're talking about real estate. We're talking about real estate investment trusts, stock market ETFs. These type of investments, while a bit more aggressive, are still considered safe and can help you build wealth as opposed to just maintain the wealth you have. Now let's talk about high-risk investments. When we think about high-risk investments, we're usually thinking about investing in individual stocks, investing in things like crypto, so Bitcoin or Ethereum, or maybe investing in a startup company. The reason these are high risk is because the opportunity for gains is massive, but so is the opportunity for losses. It is not uncommon for someone to buy Bitcoin and a year later see their entire portfolio maybe 50% up. It's an incredible feeling. And I know from personal experience that it is entirely possible to see your portfolio drop by 50% overnight. It's no fun, so tread carefully with these high risk investments. All right, cool. Let's move on to compounding interest. Now, this is a core concept when we're talking about investing. Fun fact, if you double a penny every day for 30 days, you're going to have about $10,737,418.24 on the 30th day. Now, how the heck does that work? Well, that's the magic of compounding interest. Let's use a real-world example with $100,000. If you have $100,000 and you decide you want to pick a medium risk strategy, so maybe an index fund, and you throw $100,000 in there and you wait a year, then by the end of that year, you will have $107,000. Because the interest was 7%, and 7% of 100,000 is 7,000. But here's the cool thing. If you left that money in there, then on the second year, instead of getting interest on the initial 100,000, you're now getting interest on 107,000. Now, let's extrapolate this across 20 years. If you left your $100,000 in an index fund, after 5 years, you'd have $140,000. Doing nothing. After 10 years, you'd have $197,000 doing nothing. And after 20 years, you'd have $386,000. And all you did was throw $100K into an index fund. Hallelujah. So that is the magic of compounding interest. It's super cool. It's super essential. It's how people get wealthy. Let's move on to some of the enemies that are going to be in your way on your investment journey. The inflation monster. The inflation monster is not your friend. The inflation monster is nobody's friend, and everybody has to deal with the inflation monster. If you ignore him or her at your peril. So let's take your $100,000 and say that we just do nothing with it. We throw it into a checking account because why not? Who cares? Inflation monster says, ooh, look at this. Here's an unsuspecting victim, and I'm a hungry guy. I'm going to eat her $100,000 over the year, and I'm going to poop out $97,000. So every year, this inflation monster, no matter what, is going to eat 3% of your money. Now that's an average. It varies year over year, but for the last 50 years, it's about 3%. Now let's look at a history briefly of the power of $100, the purchasing power. $100 of today's money back in 1920 was worth $1,600. $100 back in 1970 could get you $800 worth of stuff. And $100 today back in 2000 could get you $180 worth of stuff. As time goes on, the power of the dollar itself and the power of its value slowly depreciates. So how do we defeat the inflation monster? We defeat the inflation monster with a high yield savings account. I mean, look at our inflation monster. He's got X's in his eyes. He's dead. He's spent. He died with a couple of dollar bills in his mouth, and that was the end of him or her, or they, or them. Damn, this is fun. Okay, cool. We've covered quite a bit. So now we get to do the fun part, which is create a portfolio. So how do we think about creating a portfolio, Sista? The first thing we want to do is think about what's our time horizon and how risk averse are we? If we're a young sister and we're like 14, then we have all the time in the world and that's on our side. And we can be a bit aggressive because we're young and we can make mistakes and mom and dad will probably bail us out anyway. But if we're a bit older, then we're probably wanting to hold on to everything that we've built. So we're going to pick a more conservative, passive growth strategy. It all depends on how much time you have to invest and how much risk you can handle. So let's look at our approaches. A conservative approach, or a low passive growth approach, is where essentially we just throw our money into a high yield savings or a bond. Now, a moderate strategy, or a balanced growth and stability focused strategy, would be one where we go heavier into these medium risk investment options, like, I don't know, index funds, or we buy some real estate, or maybe we go in on a real estate investment trust. These are all possibilities. Now, say we are totally comfortable with risk. We got nothing to lose. We're a single guy. We don't have a girlfriend. We got no responsibilities. And we just kind of look at our navel gazing a lot and wondering what the hell we're doing with our life. That wasn't an autobiography. Then we have a bit more room to be aggressive. We can start to think about things like crypto or individual stocks. You know, these are highly volatile, but also highly rewarding prospects. One final note on this is that diversification is so important with these moderate and aggressive strategies. And the reason it's important is because if you throw all your eggs in the Bitcoin basket and Bitcoin does what it does and crashes, then you lose all of your stuff. And that's a terrible feeling and is not good for your wealth building at all. You want to kind of think about, all right, how do I want to divvy up this money to where I have a little bit of exposure to all of these different things, to where I can handle if things go really poorly or really well. With that being said, let's talk about an actual strategy. So say you have $100,000 and you are in the moderate camp. What I would say, if this was a moderate portfolio, is I would take 15% of my overall money and I would throw it into a high yield savings. This is my emergency fund. This is, oh crap, they fired all of the Costco employees and now I need to just sit back and try and find another job. Now with this 15%, you can still earn a bit of interest. Remember, it's about 3%, but your estimated return after a year of just investing $15,000 is about $600. If this is a moderate portfolio, we're going to want to allocate about 60% into these more medium risk type investments. So if we allocate $60,000 to say the S&P 500 or the VOO, then we can expect that we might get a 10% return that year. Now, hypothetically, if we get a 10% return, that means that we've made $6,000 just leaving our money in there. Okay, so that's great. Another 15% I would use for higher risk stuff. This is where you can use 15% of this 100K to purchase Bitcoin or purchase Meta or Amazon or some individual stock that you like, right? And if that goes well, it's not uncommon for people to purchase Bitcoin and gain 50% and much more off of their initial investment. Well, we'll just say that you gained 50%. You made $7,500 there. So with this moderate portfolio here, you could expect to make right around $14,100. That's pretty damn good just for letting money sit in different places and doing nothing. Pretty damn good. I also put 10% should go into a 401k or retirement, and you'll thank yourself later. At least that's the theory. Now that we have all this tasty information, what should we do with it? Should we just be like, all right, I'm glad I know that. Nothing's going to change. I don't recommend that. I recommend we actually take some action, because that's actually how we learn. We do things. We don't just think about stuff. Step 1 is to open a brokerage account. You could use Robinhood, you could use Schwab, Fidelity, Webull. It doesn't matter. Whichever one looks the most appealing to you. Step 2 is to automate investments. Don't just rely on your willpower or your memory to continue to invest and build your wealth. Instead, set up and use the tools that are available to you. In this case, it would be a recurring deposit. If you want to invest in Bitcoin and you want to invest about $3,000 a year into Bitcoin, then I recommend setting up a $10 daily investment into Bitcoin, and by the end, you'll have invested $3,650. Skadoosh. Step number 3, dollar cost average. You might be tempted to throw all of your money all at once into, an index fund. It's not the worst idea, but there's a better idea. The better idea is to invest gradually. And step 4, of course, is just keep learning. There's so many finance videos out there. I recommend you watch almost none of them and just find someone that you trust and like and dive deeper in small chunks into how they think and how they approach finance. Anyways, hope all you sisters enjoyed this video. I especially hope my sister did. And you know what? Us brothers are lucky to have you sisters. And we're all grateful for the role that you've played in our lives. I told myself I wouldn't cry. Okay, gotta go.